Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a bright and sunny day at the most popular place to get your wood, the lumbar yard, where there's really nothing better than feeling the warm sun on your face, smelling the earthy scent from pine trees, and of course, taking a tour of our very own lumbar yard here at Derm Mnemonics. If you haven't guessed it already, in this sketch, we will be covering the clinical features and treatment for lumbar sacral syndrome. Now, let's not lumbar about. Let's get started. Recall that lumbar is an acronym for lower body hemangioma, urogenital anomalies, myelopathy, bony deformation, anorectal deformations, arterial anomalies, and renal anomalies. But to me, it's just a clever way to get confused. Instead, let's take a tour of the lumbar yard. It's also worth noting, but not explicitly shown, that it's not uncommon for the hemangiomas seen in these patients to fall into a subset known as infantile hemangiomas with minimal or arrested growth, meaning they have little growth beyond patches of reticulated erythema with telangiectasias, with under 25% of the surface area demonstrating a proliferative growth phase. In general, any complication discussed in this sketch should also be screened for if you diagnose a segmental hemangioma in the lumbosacral region. Now, on to the main attraction, where our guide for the tour today will be He-Man, which is short for hemangioma. I mean, we tried to get Woody Harrelson, but we were just barking up the wrong tree. So hey, He-Man it is, which isn't so bad. But it does look like he's a little tied up right now. I wonder how he got himself caught up by that crane. Notice his red strawberry underwear caught with the hook. This is to remind you that lumbar syndrome causes segmental hemangiomas that present on the lumbar and sacral spine regions, buttocks, and genitalia. Hence the strawberry underwear. Notably, hemangiomas in this area are also more likely to ulcerate, so we've depicted He-Man's undies as having a hole in them from the crane to remind you of this fact. Isn't there something strange about that crane and cable holding him up? Well, the crane looks like a vertebra, and the crane's cable looks very spinal cord-esque. This is to remind you that myelopathies such as tethered cord or lipomyelomeningocele can occur and, if untreated, may result in paralysis. Some clues to the underlying presence of this dangerous complication include presence of other midline lesions such as deviated gluteal cleft, lipoma, or overlying skin appendages, among others which will not be discussed in this sketch. Now, let's all work together to get He-Man down before he loses sensation in his legs. Pull on 3. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Whoa. Let's get a different stool to get him down with. This one has a janky short leg. This is to remind you that lumbar syndrome can present with limb length discrepancy, leading one leg to be shorter than the other. Hey, with the sun beating down and our tour not even starting yet, I'll tell you what, I am really pining for some refreshing drink. But fortunately, if you see over dar, the lumbar yard has prepared a carafe of some ice-cold lemonade on top of that barrel. This lemonade is very urine-colored, don't you think? I'm sure it's not what you think. It's been made from fresh and ripe lemons. Yeah, maybe just don't think about it. In case He-Man's overly revealing undies aren't enough to remind you of the slightly overemphasized genitals of classic 80s cartoons, hopefully this urine-colored lemonade will remind you of urogenital anomalies that can also be present. Well, let's fill up He-Man's very kidney-shaped satchel with a drink to go and be on our way. Recall that when we include a kidney satchel like this one, it's to remind you of renal involvement, and in this case, patients can develop renal anomalies such as hypoplastic single or pelvic kidney. Now, as we begin our tour, I'd like to point your attention to our little lumbar yard mascot, the rubber duck. This mighty duck sits atop our log stacks and is a good luck charm for all who enter the lumbar yard. This little rubber ducky is to remind you of the fatty lipomas that can develop in patients with this syndrome. Patients with lumbar syndrome are also prone to skin tags, or acrocordons if you're feeling fancy. So, we've placed our cute little recurring tree with the funky yellow pedunculated fruit growing in the lumber yard. Now, at a lumber yard, there's always potential fire hazards, and we always have to be ready for it. Fortunately, we have red water hoses scattered in all areas, just in case we ever need them. Oh no, the one at the base of that wood stack appears to be tortuous and backed up, causing a problem with its fluid flow at the moment. This is to remind you of the arterial anomalies that can be present. As we continue our tour, you can see that there are logs of wood as far as the eye can see. Oh no, Johnny, be careful. Don't sit down right there. I don't think he sees that nail poking out of that stool. Wait! Ooh, that must have hurt. Johnny sitting on that horribly placed nail is to remind you that anorectal anomalies are something you always have to watch out for, and can range from an imperforate anus to fistulas. The final interesting and necessary thing to have at our lumbar yard is our propane tank. It helps replenish fuel in our equipment, and likewise, will remind you of the treatment we use for lumbosacral syndrome. Treatment with propranolol should be considered especially for large, ulcerated, or complicated segmental hemangiomas. Well, guys, it has been an exciting day having you at the lumbar yard, but let's bundle this sketch up with a quick review. Lumbosacral syndrome presents with segmental hemangiomas of the lower back, buttocks, or genitalia. Just remember the title of the sketch and that He-Man is the guide. Patients can also present with myelopathies, such as myelomeningocele, as shown by the crane with a spinal cord-like cable and vertebral scaffolding. Bony deformities can lead to leg length discrepancy, shown by the stool with a single short leg. Urogenital anomalies are often present. Renal anomalies like hypoplastic, single, or pelvic kidney are an important association, and you should refer your patients for screening. Patients can present with non-cancerous growths like lipomas and acrocordons, so remember the rubber duck and the yellow fruit tree. Arterial stenosis and dysplasia can lead to backup of blood flow, just like the hose being backed up, and anorectal anomalies are associated, such as imperforate anus and fistulas. So recall Johnny sitting on the nail. Propranolol is the recommended treatment for lumbosacral syndrome when patients present with large, ulcerated, or complicated segmental hemangiomas, and is shown by the propane tank. Alright, come see us again sometime.